Hi, welcome to another episode of Make It Happen Mondays with Chef Cherie. I'm Chef Cherie, the chef and owner of Global Love Catering and Personal Chef. Today, we are talking slow cooker, slow cooking Instapot. Now, if you're not following me on social media, please like, follow, and share this video. I'm also on Instagram at chef_Cherie. I'm also on LinkedIn as Cherie Hunter. If you're looking to hire my services or just have a few questions about what a personal chef is or what I can do for your family, please go to my website at www.globallovecatering.com. Now, if you make any of my dishes that I do here on my show, please take a picture, share them on Facebook, and make sure you use the hashtag Chef Cherie, hashtag Global Love Catering, hashtag Make It Happen Mondays. That way, I can see exactly what you've got cooking and give you a shout out that you've given the dish a try and I'll ask you how it was, how did you like it, just ask you a few questions. What would you tweak or what did you tweak? Because every chef, we always tweak a recipe. We get a recipe, we might try it the way the recipe says once, maybe even twice, but then we twist it and put our own spin on it. Now, today we're talking slow cookers. Slow cooker, Instapot, or the old school name for them, crock pot. Crock pot, slow cooker, same thing. Now the Instapot is more than a little different. It's a lot different. It does everything a slow cooker crock pot can do, but more. Okay, your Instapot, you can saute, you can cook rice. There are many different things that you could do with an Instapot. An Instapot is also can be used as a pressure cooker. Now, a pressure cooker is exactly what the name implies. It cooks your food under pressure. So you have your Instapot, and your Instapot has a valve on the top to where when you're cooking in it and you have that valve sealed and it's in the pressure cooker mode, the pressure builds up and it actually allows you to cook slow cooker meals quicker than you could in a slow cooker. In a slow cooker, even if you put it on high, it's still going to take you roughly about 4 hours to cook. Now, the Instapot, on the other hand, will cook it in more than half that time. So today what I have is we're going to cook Asian pulled pork. Okay, this is my recipe for Asian pulled pork. Now, before this episode started, before we went live today, I did put some pork. What I'm going to show you how to do in the slow cooker, I did put it together and put it in the Instapot. And in the Instapot, I have it set for 1 hour and 10 minutes. In 1 hour and 10 minutes, dinner will be ready. Now, different ways I like to serve this Asian pulled pork. One, you could do it classic, put it on a bun. Put it on toasted bun, have a sandwich. Or you can use some Asian noodles. If you don't have Asian noodles, spaghetti noodles work just as well. Now, and you can actually take some of the liquid that is in the dish and add it to your noodles with your beef, and then add whatever veggie toppings you want. My children like carrots, baby bok choy, sugar snap peas, those type of vegetables, green onions, they like to add to it. Now, you can also do tacos. You could do Asian style tacos. Once again, you just have your tortillas, and you can saute or have some raw veggies of the same vegetables we just talked about to top your taco with. Now, I'm using pork shoulder. Now, you definitely can use a beef rump roast if you want. The preparation for it is the same. Now, what I've done, and this is one tip that I like to tell people that I like to do when I'm grocery shopping. When I'm grocery shopping, when I buy big cuts of meat, I try to ensure that that one piece of meat is enough for more than one meal. So, I bought a Boston pork shoulder. It was about 7 pounds. 7 pounds and some change. Once you cut that down, you're going to end up with roughly 3 pounds each. Because you know you got to trim your fat and the bone, so that's going to take up some of your weight. So you're going to end up with roughly 2 stacks of meat, 3 pounds, which is good for 2 meals. Now, depending on the size of your family, that 3 pounds will leave you with some leftovers for lunch to take with you to work the next day, or just another full meal if you do it that way. So I bought 1 7-pound and some change Boston pork butt, and it was only $12 and some change. So for $12, I'm able to get 2 main portions of my meal, the protein for the meal. So what I'm about to show you, I also have over here cooking in the Instapot. Okay, it's cooking, it's going, it's under pressure. I can actually already start to smell it. It's smelling wonderful. So what we're going to do is we're going to prep our pork. Now, before we prep our pork, let me tell you what we're going to season this pork with. So here I have some spices. Now, whether you're cooking in the Instapot or your slow cooker, you're going to need liquid. Okay, so for our spices, we've got Chinese 5-spice. Now, this Chinese 5-spice is my recipe. I toast and grind my own spices and make my own Chinese 5-spice. I have a tablespoon of Chinese 5-spice here. I also have a teaspoon of garlic powder. I have a half a teaspoon of ground ginger. I have a teaspoon of black pepper. And this one is it's another Chinese spice called togarashi. Toga who? Toga what? Togarashi. Now, I'm going to show you this. I get this from my Oriental Asian store here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And if you can't find this, it's okay. You could use cayenne pepper in its place. But I love the flavor of this chili pepper seasoning called togarashi. So those are spices that is going to go into it. Now, our liquid, which I have here. And for our liquid, we want at least 2 cups of liquid. So, in this measuring cup, I have half a cup of low sodium soy sauce. Remember, you want to use low sodium. You want to control this salt. Okay? If you want to use regular soy sauce, you can. Okay? But I'm actually not going to add any more salt to this recipe, because not only do we have the low sodium soy sauce, half a cup, we also have 1/4 of a cup of rice vinegar in here. And we also have 1 tablespoon of fish sauce. Now, fish sauce gives your Asian dishes a wonderful, what's called an umami flavor. It gives it a real nice rounded flavor. Now, if you don't have fish sauce, it's okay. It's completely okay. What you can substitute it for is Worcestershire sauce. If you've got Worcestershire sauce, you can use that. And you're only going to need a tablespoon. And fish sauce and Worcestershire sauce are both salty. So, like I said, between the soy sauce and then the fish sauce or the Worcestershire sauce, you're going to have enough salt in your dish. Now, to prep our meat, here's the good thing, one of my favorite things about cooking with a slow cooker. You don't have to cut your meat down super small. You can leave it in relatively big chunks. Now, this piece, I'm only going to cut it once that way. This one's kind of bigger this way, so I'm going to cut it this way. So, those are pretty big chunks. And yes, I am leaving some of the fat. I did clean off the majority of the fat off of here. I did take the really big fat cap off. And you want that because you don't want to end up with too much oil, too much grease in your dish. Okay, so once again, I'm just going to cut this down. Now, I will say, for the Instapot, I don't cook with the bone of the pork shoulder in the Instapot. Yes, the meat is getting tender, but all the real flavor that is in the bone doesn't have time to fully develop and come out of the bone. So, when I'm slow cooking, I definitely, absolutely will keep the bone. So, the pork shoulder that I had, I cut half. The part that's in the Instapot doesn't have the bone, but I do have the bone here. And this is going to go into my slow cooker. I feel now, most Instapots do have, well, not most, all Instapots have a slow cooker function on them. And you just turn it to the slow cooker function. Definitely put your bone in there. So this is the bowl that I use to season the pork that went into the Instapot. So I'm just going to reuse this same bowl, and I'm going to add all my spices into the bowl. Now, if you're not real big on Asian cuisine, that's okay. You can still use your Instapot, your slow cooker, to do pork or beef or chicken. I've actually done a Moroccan chicken dish in my slow cooker. So I'm just going to give this seasoning a little stir around. Okay. And the pepper's about to make me sneeze. I feel it. And you just want to coat. Now, For cleanup, as you can see, thus far we've got a few bowls that we used to put our spices in. And we've got our cutting board that we cut our meat on. We've got our bowl that the meat was in. Okay, so thus far, and then we've got our measuring cup with our liquid in it. Thus far, for dinner, we have not dirtied a whole lot of dishes. And that is one of the other beauties of slow cooker cooking. They say it's a set it and forget it. But everyone I know that has ever used or been around someone that is cooked in a slow cooker, you might set it, but you can't forget it. Because as it starts to cook, you're going to smell it. And it smells divine. Now, to aid in the as few dishes as possible, for my slow cooker, I like to buy slow cooker liners. Hey. Sorry, I had a sneeze and it wouldn't come out. Now, these are the slow cooker bags liners that I buy. Okay, it makes fast, easy cleanup. Your slow cooker doesn't end up being dirty. Now, I do not recommend, this is not suitable for your Instapot when you're using the pressure cooker. And I don't know, you're not going to be able to use this with the Instapot because the way the lid locks and seals, the bag is going to end up being in the way of it sealing correctly. But if you have a regular slow cooker, crock pot, then absolutely I do recommend using a liner. It makes cleanup so much easier. So I've got my meat here. I'm just going to season my meat and put it right into the pot. Nothing out. Nothing to it, but just putting it, rolling it around in the seasoning, picking up some of the seasoning, and putting it in the pan. And whatever seasoning is left, if you end up with some of it still in the bowl, just pour it right over into your pot. I'm going to take this one glove off, and I'm just going to get all that seasoning out of there, out the pot, okay, and sit it there. Oh, almost forgot the bone. And we're just going to nestle this right on top. Push it down in there so it can pick up some of the seasoning. Okay. Now, I can take the glove off from here. Now, from here, you want to add your liquid. And like I said, 2 cups of liquid is going to be the perfect amount to not only cook and help your meat get tender and easily shreddable, but it's going to keep it very moist. Now, you can cook this one of 2 ways at this stage. There are a couple of things you can do at this stage. At this stage, you could put it in your slow cooker, which I have mine right here. You can put it in your slow cooker and set it on high. Now, setting it on high, it will be done cooking in roughly 4 hours. Or if you're doing this first thing in the morning and you're going to be out, you got errands to run, you got to go to work, then you could put this on low and let it cook all day. Now, the amount of liquid that we put in it is going to help prevent it from drying out and your meat being dry. It'll still be nice, moist, and delicious. So, because I have one cooking in the Instapot, but I don't want it to cook all night, I am going to put this on high and let it cook for 4 hours. Now, if you're doing meal prep, which I also do with my business and at home, if you're doing this for meal prep, you can stop at this point. I would actually take this whole bag, pull the sides up, set it in a bowl, and put it in the freezer, just like this, and let it freeze. Then from there, once it's frozen, all your liquid is frozen, I would then put it in a gallon freezer Ziploc bag and label it Asian pulled pork. And if you want to remember the date that you've made it, you can do that as well. I recommend all Ziploc bags have that little area in the bag where you can put the date on there. So label it Asian pulled pork and then put it in your freezer for another meal. Or you can go ahead and cook it and then freeze it once it's fully cooked and put it away and freeze it that way. Now, that is what I'm going to do with this one. This one I'm going to go ahead and, because of the bag, I find that my lid doesn't always sit real tight on my slow cooker. So I put foil on there, and that helps trap the steam. And I'm going to put this on high and let that cook. Now, of course, we all know pork is not the only thing that you can cook in the slow cooker. There are many different dishes, many different meals. Anything that you would cook slow on the stove or even in the oven, you can do in your slow cooker or your Instapot. Now, the good thing about an Instapot allows you to saute and then slow cook. So say you're doing beef stew. Okay, we've got the beef stew. You know, with beef stew, you have to brown the meat. You have to coat the meat in your seasoning, toss it with a little flour, and then put it in your pan with a little oil and brown it on all sides. And then you deglaze your pan. You add your mirepoix. For those that this is their first time tuning in, mirepoix is just a culinary term for onions, celery, and carrots. Okay, so you'd have your onion, your celery, and your carrots. You know, you dice them up, you pull the meat out, then you add and you sweat or saute your vegetables. Then you add your wine or your stock to deglaze your pan, and then add your meat back in. And then you want to, once it comes to a boil, turn it down to low and let your beef stew cook on the stove. Now, with the Instapot, once you sear your meat off and you saute your vegetables off, you've added your liquid, you've deglazed your pan, which simply means to get all the brown bits, all the seasoning that is stuck to the bottom of your pot. You want to add your liquid and use your spoon and scrape it up and release it from the bottom of the pan. Now, once it's released from the bottom of the pan, then you're going to add your meat and stuff in there. Now, once you add your meat back in, at that point, with your Instapot, you could do one of two things. You could turn it on to the slow cooker setting and slow cook your beef stew, or you can close the lid up, seal it up, and put it on pressure and pressure cook it. Now, once again, the Instapot allows you to cook food in half the time that it would take you to cook food in a traditional slow cooker. Now, I have room in my heart, in my kitchen, for both. Sometimes I actually have more than one slow cooker. I have two. So when my kids were really, really, really into sports, well, not just sports, we'll say extracurricular activities outside of school. My daughter was did orchestra. She did it all 3 years of middle school and 2 years in high school. My oldest son, Sean, he was on the high school swim team all 4 years of high school, in which he graduated this year. And my younger two, Jonathan and David, now those two did judo. There it is. So, we had a very busy schedule. We had orchestra. She had to go to orchestra practice. My son had to go to swim practice. The younger two to judo. And on some weeknights, us all being home at the same time was just not going to happen. So, using the slow cooker helped tremendously because I know what the schedule is going to be like for the day. I know who's got to go where. Therefore, I know we're going to be home at different times, getting home at different times. Let me get up. I'll take my meat out the freezer the night before and pop it into my slow cooker that morning, go about the day. And by the time the end of the day comes, when everyone starts to split up, then they can eat when they get home. Because Sean and Tatiana, my older two, would get home before the younger two. Because the younger two did judo later in the day, rather than with Sean and Tatiana, their practices were right after school. So they'd have their practice, get home. As they're getting home, we're now leaving with the other two to go do judo. So the older two were able to eat dinner, and then once the other two get home, so the slow cooker has been very, very helpful. Now, chicken in slow cooker, yes. Beef, yes. Seafood, yes. Now, when you're working with seafood in your slow cooker, or even your Instapot using the slow cooker setting on it, you can't just stick everything in there at one time and it cooks the way you can, say, with pork. Because seafood cooks at different times. So, if you're doing a bouillabaisse, which is a fish stew, a fish stew, tomato based, you want to start your base. You want to add your mirepoix, your tomatoes, all your aromatics in, and let that start cooking for at least 2 hours. Once that has been, your base has been cooking for 2 hours, then you want to go in. The way you add your seafood in is you add what's going to take the longest first. So once your base is ready, let's say we're going to do crab, fish, shrimp, and clams. Out of all of those, your shrimp takes the least amount of time to cook. So the shrimp would be the last to go into your pot. So you have your base. Then you're going to add your crab. Close it up. Give it about 10-15 minutes. Then you're going to add your fish. Give it another 10-15 minutes. Then you're going to add your clams or whatever shellfish you're using. Whether it's clams, mussels, either or, then add those in. Once those are in, give it 10 minutes and then add your shrimp on top and close it up. Once the shrimp is done, your bouillabaisse is done. And bouillabaisse is very, very good and wonderful. Now, if you would like to see me make a bouillabaisse or have more questions about a bouillabaisse, please leave it down in the comments and I'll answer your questions. I do read my comments. I do answer questions. So if you want to see me do a bouillabaisse, give me a thumbs up down in the comments to let me know that's something that you would like to see on Make It Happen Mondays. Now, I've got the same dish cooking in my Instapot and in my slow cooker. And that's okay. Because like I said, it can be frozen once it's done cooking. So one we'll have for dinner tonight. The other, I will allow it to cool. I'll make sure all my meat is, I'll shred all my meat up, put it in a Ziploc bag or in a Tupperware container, label it, and put it in the freezer for another day. Do we have any questions? No questions. Awesome. Now, if Asian isn't your thing, or you prefer traditional barbecue pulled pork, that's fine. You can still do this the same way. The only difference is your liquid. You're going to need, remember, 2 cups of liquid because you don't want your meat to dry out. So if you have a McCormick seasoning pack that you like, I know my husband likes the bourbon brown sugar one. He likes that one a lot. Same thing, you take that season pack and you're going to season your pork with that season pack the same way we seasoned our meat with our Asian spices that I mixed up. Okay, you're going to put it into your slow cooker or your Instapot. Now, for your liquid, I suggest using some liquid smoke. Not a lot, a little liquid smoke goes a long way. Liquid smoke is just like using fish sauce or Worcestershire sauce. It's strong. It doesn't take a lot. So for your liquid smoke, for 3 pounds, I would say, I want to say a tablespoon of liquid smoke, no more. Now, if you only want a slight little hint of smoke, then I would go half a teaspoon of liquid smoke, but put some cumin in there. Cumin has a really nice smoky flavor. Or if you want it a little hot, you can go with some hot smoked paprika. That will give you your smoke and your heat at the same time. Now, if you want to do more Italian pulled pork, that is very, very doable. Once again, your spices and herbs that you want to use is get your Italian seasoning blend, herb blend. Use that to season your meat with. Now your liquid, that one could be a little tricky. Okay, you definitely can use beef stock, chicken stock, vegetable stock. For the, I would go half stock, half water, or all stock, or all water. But I will say, add about an extra 2 tablespoons of your Italian seasoning blend in to your slow cooker when you add your liquid. Because if you're using water, the seasoning is going to get diluted and it's not going to be very flavorful. It's going to taste watered down. So you're going to need to up your spices, your Italian seasoning blend to counter the water going in.
You use wine.
You can use wine. I wouldn't use all wine. And there's this rule that some chefs like to say. When you're cooking red meat, you use red wine. When you're doing more white meat like pork or poultry, you use white wine. And with seafood, you use white wine. For me, especially when it comes to beef, it could be a flip of a coin, how I'm feeling, what I have. If I've got only a cup of my favorite wine left and I got white wine, I'm going to cook with the white and I'm going to drink the rest of my red. That's just the way I like red wine. What can I say? But especially with pulled pork, you can use any flavorings, whether it's Asian, Italian, Moroccan, or your regular barbecue pulled pork seasoning will go great with pulled pork. Now, I've also done a shredded flank steak that I seasoned up somewhat Asian style. I use some Asian spices, but not a whole lot. And we make tacos with them, or sometimes I'll put it over rice, or even over a salad at times. So, do we have any questions? No questions. Okay. So, stay tuned. My Instapot is not quite done. It's got about 18 minutes left on it. And then, once your timer goes off, your Instapot is not done. You have to wait for the pressure to release. Once it's done, it'll go off. You will know. And there's a valve right here. And don't use your hand because you're liable to scald yourself with hot steam. You're going to use a spoon or something with a long handle to turn the pressure from sealed to release. And then you want to let that pressure release before you open the lid. And most Instant Pots have a function that when it's sealed and it's in the pressure cooker mode, it won't allow you to open it back up. It won't allow you to open it, period, once it's under pressure. So, when our Asian pulled pork gets done, I will come back on live. I will come back on Facebook Live, and I will show you and let you see exactly how this pulled pork looks and tastes. And next week, tune in before that. There's something I need to say. Now, you all know last week I had my mom on. Sorry about that. I had my mom on last week, and it was her birthday. Well, today is someone else's birthday. Today, July 27th, is my father's birthday, Julius Quillen. So, Daddy, I love you. Happy birthday. Now, for next week's episode, drum roll, please. Next week's episode is going to be on, okay, I'll put it down in the comments. I will let you know. But it's going to be a good one. You're not going to want to miss it. So our food is cooking. My crock pot, my slow cooker is nice and hot and going. My Instapot is going 2 meals, the same meal, for 2 different times. Once for tonight. Tomorrow might be for next month. Don't know. It'll be frozen and ready to go. So, tune in next week, and I'll let you know down in the comments. Look into the comments for next week's episode. Now, if you're not following me on social media, please do. Right here on Facebook, also on Instagram at chef_Cherie. I'm also on LinkedIn as Cherie Hunter. If you're looking to hire my services or just want to ask me a few questions, what exactly is a personal chef? How can I help you and your family here in the Jacksonville, North Carolina and surrounding areas? Please send me an email by my website at www.globallovecatering.com. Also, if you give tonight's dish a try, or any of the dishes that I cook here on Facebook Live, make sure you tag me using the hashtags, hashtag Chef Cherie, hashtag Global Love Catering, hashtag Make It Happen Monday. And until next week, God bless, be safe, and cook and spend time with your family. Bye.